Well, hey everybody, this is Chris DiFiorio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. And today's episode is brought to you by La Marzocco, who has been making espresso machines for almost 100 years. And a century of making espresso machines, or almost a century of making espresso machines, teaches you a lot. You know, that company is known as sort of the cornerstone when it comes to espresso equipment the world over. Some of the best coffee bars in the world use that machine, rely on that machine. I grew up with it. It is a household name for a reason. Beauty, dependability, and innovation. Machines like the KB90 espresso machine with straight-in locking portafilter technology. You've got the Linea Classic, which is, like we say, it's a classic. Also the PB, the Linea PB with the classic Linea profile, but all the technology of today to allow baristas the ultimate control over the espresso, the upgrade of the manual lever machine, the Leva, and others. You know, there's lots of configurations. You can look at it, lamarzocousa.com. Better yet, you know what? You should go and email them. info@lamarzocousa.com. Talk to a salesperson and let them help you select the right equipment for your shop. You're going to love your La Marzocco. If you're in the market for a great espresso machine, you don't need to look anywhere else. So again, go visit them over at lamarzocousa.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Rattleware. Rattleware.com is where you can go to see some of the best smallwares you can get for your cafe. And even though that term smallwares, he says small, it's actually a really big deal that you get smallwares that work. When you're talking about spoons and pitchers and knockboxes and whisks and everything like that, if it doesn't work well, the shot glasses, it's going to make a big difference. It's going to be annoying. And the foundation of your business is based on these small things. Rattleware produces smallwares that just work. So again, go and visit them over at rattleware.com. Take inventory of what you need in your cafe and let their craftsmanship and the quality of their work speak for itself in your cafe and build the foundation of something that you can rely on. That's what they do. Smallwares that just work over at rattleware.com. All right, everyone. Well, so today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about celebrating unhealthily. Is that a word? Unhealthy gains. Okay, so gains that you achieve through unhealthy means or in a toxic way, or, you know, the way I interpret the word toxic is that it's something that in and of itself is it's fine, but it's turned bad because of a misalignment or bad intentions. Like, it's not bad to clock in for work, but it is bad to expect your baristas to clock in early for a shift that they're only on the clock for at a particular time. And, you know, that's a little bit of a toxic thing. Like, oh, your shift starts at 2 p.m., so come in here and you got to be here at 15 till 2, but they're not being paid until 2 p.m. Well, now clocking in has become riddled with this kind of a weird weight to it because there's this misaligned intent behind it. So that's how normal things turn toxic. So when we are in a place of desperation or urgency in the cafe, we will call upon the good graces of those around us. And we've talked about this before where, you know, you talk about the resourcefulness of the baristas and how they can overcome the challenges on the job, and that sometimes even in the job description, problem solving and resourcefulness is a championed ideal of the barista, because in our mind, we know they're going to have to put up with a lot of stuff. And if we're really being honest, some of that stuff is there because we allow it to be there and it shouldn't be there. Inefficiencies, problems, broken things, ill fit equipment, and all sorts of stuff. Well, it's a good thing we've got these resourceful baristas because look at they're doing it. You crushed that rush. You really nailed it, right? And so we're celebrating. At the same time, what we're doing is we're kind of justifying and cementing in, normalizing the dysfunction and the unhealthily achieved gains and not really solving the problem. So we're not reserving our praise for the normal times. You know, we're not excited about doing great work in times where nothing is urgent, where it doesn't seem like we're going to lose our life at the hand of the long line, you know, where it seems like we're really up against a huge challenge. And when we overcome that challenge, we celebrate that. When we celebrate something, you've got to realize it gets seen as that's what they value. And if what you're valuing is something that is unsustainable, pulling that double shift. If the only time you really praise your baristas is when they go above and beyond, you're doing it wrong. That whole idea of going above and beyond, Check out our episode when going above and beyond goes too far. Just make the standards high for your baristas from the get-go and recognize a job well done. Reward a job well done. Celebrate gains that are achieved in a healthy way. And then hold yourself as the chief resourcing officer, the chief clarity officer, accountable for creating solutions to problems and workflows and other things that probably could be solved. And that really is your role. As a facilitator of success, the resourcefulness and problem solving and all this other stuff, that's actually your job and not necessarily the barista. Now, the problem solving aspect of the barista job might be to reach into that toolkit that you've been given if you've been trained and use those tools to solve a customer's problem. But when unprecedented things come up and people pull out solutions, but the unprecedented thing that came up was a result of a lot of little things that went wrong on the shift, then, again, it kind of comes back to us as leaders in the cafe. So what I want to say here is really start shifting your priorities of what you speak life into to make sure that it's matching up with something that is life-giving, that is sustainable. If I only receive praise for pulling a double shift and I never get praise for doing a good normal shift, I don't have any hope of receiving praise unless I go, quote unquote, above and beyond and do something crazy, because it's crickets otherwise. We're not celebrating the normal things, we're celebrating the abnormal things. So let's try to make an early New Year's resolution here, I guess. What is it, like 3 months away, 4 months? It's way early. Never mind. But let's try to make a resolution to identify and celebrate those parts of the job that are very normal, but good and sustainable, repeatable, not unhealthy and unprecedented. And, when those unprecedented times come in, let those be times where we can celebrate that we got through it fine. But, let's just be a little bit more somber and be like, that felt like it was needlessly difficult. What do we need to do to make that easier when that happens again? How did that happen? How did we end up on a Saturday morning with only 2 baristas working this giant bar? I mean, those guys, wow, they made so many tips and they pulled it out. You all are rock stars. Thank you so much. But we're not talking about how, man, it was pretty unfair. Sometimes that happens, but we have to go to hit the books and figure out what happened there. How can we make this not a thing anymore? And we talk about this in a lot of my client meetings when stuff like this happens. And I know a lot of you are on that wavelength. Like, you really feel the pain of it. I mean, you might be feeling it personally because you are working the bar all the time, right? Solving those problems for yourself are really important too, because when you start hiring baristas to inherit this shift, you got to hand them something that's sustainable for them. You might be able to personally, as the owner, put up with a lot of stuff. You shouldn't make yourself do that and gloss over the dysfunctions because, that's just the life of an entrepreneur. No, this is a test lab. This is like a place for you to refine it so that when the time comes, again, to hand it to somebody else who's not ever going to be as invested as you, and nor should you expect them to be, it's given to them with problems solved, not problems put up with. And then you're kind of forced to, if you don't solve the problems, pretend like this is normal and make it sort of this test, this litmus test of whether you're a good barista or not, is whether or not you can handle all of the dysfunction that I've put up with for a long time, but we haven't really addressed. So that's all I really want to tell you today. And I hope that makes sense. Let me know if it does. And either way, just send me an email, chris@keystotheshop.com. I'd love to talk with you and let's hear what you got to say. But as always, thank you for listening. And I will see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break, from Keys to the Shop.